Hey everybody, Mackenzie Lambert here, your host for Making the Movies, joined by my good friend John Cleveland.
Hi everybody.
This is going to be another installment of What a Year. This year we're going to be taking a look at is 1970.
Yep. All 3,948 movies released that year.
I just made 10 on this one. I have no honorable mentions. So.
I do have some honorable mentions. I actually have two different kinds of honorable mentions.
Oh boy. All right, let's go ahead and let's start with John for his selections.
All right, well, as I mentioned, I have a bunch of honorable mentions. First, I got to give my shout-outs to MASH, Waterloo, Rio Lobo, El Topo, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, Catch-22, Tora Tora Tora, They Call Me Trinity, They Call Me Mr. Tibbs, a lot of They Call Me's in this year, Gimme Shelter, When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth, Count Yorga Vampire, Ned Kelly, Zachi Meets Yojimbo, and The Horrors of Frankenstein. And The Horrors of Frankenstein parlays me into the second list I need to talk about. Christopher Lee was in 9 fucking movies this year. 9 movies. I want you to think about that. That is insane. Those are some Roger Corman numbers. He was in Eugenie, Scream and Scream Again, Night of the Bloody Monster, Julius Caesar, Count Dracula, Taste the Blood of Dracula, One More Time, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, and Scars of Dracula. I'd like to point out, motherfucker was in 3 movies about Dracula, of which he was Dracula in all 3. He was the lead in like 6 of these. That's insane.
Hardest working man in the movies.
It's insane. There's also, I'm sorry, I have to realize there's also bad movies that I have to bring out that come out that year. We've got The Vampire Lovers, Trog, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. That's right, it's a bad movie. I don't care who wrote it. Hercules in New York, Arnold's first film. The Wizard of Gore, and the movie Bigfoot, starring John Carradine. So, with all that said, number 10, Equinox. It's a low budget to no budget affair, independently made, and all you need to know is after watching it, it's really hard to justify that Sam Raimi didn't steal everything from it from Evil Dead.
Yep.
I love Evil Dead. I am an Evil Dead head. I will die, defending Evil Dead. But after watching this, it is really difficult to say that Sam Raimi didn't rip it off.
No.
The movie has a lot in common with Evil Dead.
Yep.
It came out like 5 years before it. Actually, I'm sorry, it's 70s. This came out like a decade before.
Yeah, 11, 12 years, yeah.
So, well, either way, if you haven't seen it, check out Equinox. If you're a big fan of Evil Dead, you owe it to yourself. If not, you could say it. And to be honest with you, it's good. It's worth watching just because it's so interestingly made and what it's about. But realistically, it's probably more of a B movie, if we're being honest, a bit of a bad one. But, yeah. All right, number 9. My favorite of the series, till they started making the new ones, Beneath the Planet of the Apes. I just think it takes an interesting idea and does something fun with it. Or interesting.
And this is the one with the cult that worships the atomic bomb?
Yes.
Yep.
Made somewhat famous by Mystery Science Theater.
Yep.
Number 8, Valerie and Her Week of Wonders. I don't even know how to describe this film. There are several GIFs of it that you've probably seen online. Basically, a girl just spends... everything in the movie is about something else, so it's a little difficult talking about. But functionally, this girl just travels around through different experiences. I'm trying to be vague to not ruin things. And there's a point where she's getting burned, she's at the stake, and she just, sticks out her tongue, because she doesn't care. It's full of weird visuals and zany moments, and I highly suggest it if you've never seen it before. Number 7, Mark of the Devil, classic. Number 6, because I grew up watching a lot of John Wayne and westerns with my dad, Chisholm, famous John Wayne film. Number 5, one of my favorite Lovecraftian films, The Dunwich Horror.
Yes.
With
Dean Stockwell.
Yeah, Dean Stockwell. Yeah. I remember watching it, and then years later, on VHS or Beta even, and years later seeing him as the hologram in
Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap, and being hey, I know where he's from. But yeah, that's number 5. Number 4, Patton. It's a fantastic film with one of my favorite actors of all time,
George C. Scott.
Yep. And arguably one of the most famous speeches in film history. Number 3, again, all this stuff's going to be coming up with number 3. Again, I grew up with a lot of westerns. One of Clint Eastwood's best, 2 Mules for Sister Sarah.
Yeah, with what's her name?
Keep going. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, gosh. She was in trouble with Henry.
Guarding Tess.
Guarding Tess, yeah.
The Cannonball Run.
Shirley MacLaine.
Yep, there you go. Number 2, another Clint Eastwood film. Clint Eastwood was doing a pretty good job in 1970.
Yep.
Kelly's Heroes, which
yeah.
is basically a remake of The Dirty Dozen. But I don't care because it's still cool.
Yep.
And number 1 is a tie. And I don't like to do ties, but you'll see why.
Okay.
It's Scars of Dracula and Taste the Blood of Dracula. Because boy, is it difficult to separate the difference between those two hammer horror films about Dracula. So those are my list. I suspect I'm going to be able to pick out your number 2, like 1, 2, and 3 right now, but let's see.
Okay. My number 10, Catch-22 from Mike
Fantastic.
Nichols.
Yep.
It was a pretty good war satire, but then when that one sequence where the guy pulls back, I guess, the parachute and the guy's guts spill out, I was not ready for that. And
it's an intense film.
Yeah.
That book's crazy.
Mm-hmm. My number 9, it's a bad movie, but it's one I still enjoy, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
I wonder why.
Yeah. And you know what? You kind of got to wonder, okay, Mike Myers definitely saw this movie before he made Austin Powers.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yep. Number 8 is Woodstock, the documentary on the 3-day concert.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Number 7, Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman, and just for the opening alone of him as that 100-year-old man in that makeup is actually really impressive. Number 6, The Phantom Tollbooth, the animated film from Chuck Jones, probably one of my favorite animators of the Warner Brothers era. Number 5, Mark of the Devil, a really intense horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually sold barf bags with this movie when people saw them in theaters. Number 4, The Dunwich Horror.
Yep.
Great Lovecraftian movie.
Yep.
My number 3 is Equinox. And like we said earlier, without this movie, there is no Evil Dead.
Correct.
Yes. My number 2 is The Bird with Crystal Plumage from Dario Argento.
Nailed it.
The first in his Animal trilogy, which really popularized Giallo.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, I've heard a lot of people say it's one of the betters, if not the best.
Yep. And my number 1, of course, They Call Me Trinity from Enzo Barboni, starring Bud Spencer and Terrence Hill.
And nobody was surprised.
Still, it's the movie that cemented them as the duo. They did westerns before this, but this was really the start of their Trinity films. And
as soon as I saw it was made in 1970, I'm like, well, there's Mac's number 1, guaranteed it.
But hey, you know me so well.
Yes.
All right, so those were our selections for 1970. Feel free to share your selections in the comments below.
Yeah, there's a lot of good movies that year.
Real good year, and it's like, I'll get into it in one of our later lists, but it's like, really go back to movies before you were born, and you will see a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. I think ultimately, I think my statement would just be every year has at least 10 films that are good, that you will enjoy.
Yep.
If you might have to look for them, but just realizing that every year, pretty much, I should say every year, obviously, 1604 had no good films. But I just go in the past and just there are great films that maybe could give you an insight into a different genre, a different kind of storytelling, or maybe you'll see an actor before they were famous or before some defining role that you knew them from. You never know.
925 AD was a horrible year too. All right, so on that note, we're going to go ahead and sign off. I'm Mackenzie Lambert.
I'm John Cleveland.
Have a good night, folks.
Bye.